Hello VC. This time I'm making a video about me and Iron Maiden. The first time that I heard of Iron Maiden was in late summer or early fall of 1983, when my friend played me this, Peace of Mind. And what did I think of it musically? Well, I thought it was yelling, 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 banging, banging, banging. In short, it went whoosh, way over my head. I didn't understand it at all. But sometime later I went back to him and asked him to play the album to me again. And why was that? It was the sound of it. I had never heard anything like it, and to this day I still consider this to be one of the best sounding albums ever. It has a really strong, very dynamic sound. It was just incredible sounding record, but because I didn't understand the music, I didn't get into Iron Maiden yet. Actually, it took about a year. The following summer, me and a bunch of other guys were hanging out at this small club room, and there was a cassette player, and some guys brought the cassettes there, and somebody bought the Number of the Beast. I immediately got interested in it, but it wasn't anything more at that point. It was sometime later when a friend of a friend who had taped his record on cassette loaned it to me. He actually had it on vinyl, but he had left it on some radiator or heater, and the record had got damaged. So what he had done, he had taken scissors and cut these song titles off and glued them on his cassette, and that's the tape he borrowed to me. And after I had been listening to that one, I fell in love with it, and soon thereafter I bought the Number of the Beast myself. And that's where my love for Iron Maiden really began. But let's jump forward all the way to Somewhere in Time. Somewhere in Time had a couple of things that I didn't like. One thing was the sound. What I had thought was that every band tries to find the best possible sound for their albums. So I thought that Peace of Mind was the pinnacle. That was the top as far as the sound goes. So when Power Slave was released, I was puzzled as to why do they release an album that sounds less good than the previous one. And when Live After Death was released, it was again worse sounding album than the previous one. So to this day I still credit the sound as being the main reason why I still don't credit Live After Death so highly. So when this one came out, although I did consider it to have a better sound than Live After Death, to me this sounded soft, which was a bit of a setback to me. It wasn't a bad thing in itself. What was worse was that the song Alexander the Great was the first epic Iron Maiden song that I didn't really care for. I didn't consider it to be a bad song, but it was easily the least good of their epic songs. What was far worse was Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner. I didn't like that one at all, and to this day I still consider it to be one of the worst songs. Yeah, I forgot to bring that one. Yeah, well, next they released Can I Play With Madness? And that again was a huge disappointment because of two reasons. First one was obviously that I didn't like the song. And the second one was that it was such a big hit. And because it was a big hit, it gave me a feeling of alienation. It felt like Iron Maiden and their fans were going that way, whereas I was going that way. So it was like a big dividing moment to me. So when the album, Seventh Son album was released, I didn't actually like that. There were none of the songs on it that I would have loved. Although later on I have started to like the album, but at that time I didn't like that. So let's move on to year 1990, which was my year out in music. But I did manage to notice that they had released a new album, and I saw some interview by, I think it was with Steve Harris, where he said that they had, with their latest album, they had tried to recapture the feel or the sound of the first album, and I immediately thought that that's a bad idea. What you have once left behind you, you cannot recapture anymore. So I think it was the following year when I heard Holy Smoke. It was a huge disappointment. I didn't like it at all. To me, this sounds like a band who doesn't really care. It's just okay, we managed to write some songs, so let's just record it. Blah, blah, boring. Didn't like it, and I still think it's possibly their very worst song they have ever done. So when they released Bring Your Daughter, well, it was better than Holy Smoke, but it wasn't enough to repair the damage. And to this day, I have never heard No Prayer for the Dying album. I had pretty much lost all interest on Iron Maiden at that point, but there was still some lingering interest in them. That when they released a Real Live one and Real Dead one, I did consider buying a Real Live one, but it actually took me 15 years before I finally bought this one. And after those, when they released Live at Donington, that was like a last straw. I was fed up with them. It was 3 live albums in a row. I was just, okay, that's that. I didn't. After that, I didn't really follow them at all. I did notice Bruce leaving and Blaze Bayley coming in, then Bruce rejoining, but none of that really interested me. It went all the way into the summer of 2000 when Iron Maiden came to play at a festival here, but I didn't go there. I was actually driving to another festival, and when I'm driving long distances, I always put the records on. So as I was approaching the festival, the record ended, and I knew that there was such a short time left anymore that there wasn't any more time to play a full album. So I put the radio on, and the DJ started talking about Iron Maiden, and he told that he had similar experiences with Iron Maiden as I had, and he hadn't been interested in Maiden in a long time. But now with the new album, he was going to give it a chance, and that was of course Brave New World. And he was going to play the longest song from the album, and let's see which one that is. That's Dream of Mirrors, and I actually liked it. That was the first thing that I had really been interested in or liked in many years. But and the timing was actually perfect, because when the song ended, I pulled into the parking lot at the festival, so it was a perfect timing in that sense also. But yeah, it still took me about 3 more years before I finally bought that Brave New World album. After that, I have followed at least what they have been doing, but I haven't bought all of the albums, especially the live albums. I have only bought Made in England '88. That's the only live album that I have bought. I have a certain amount of interest on the albums, but I haven't bought all of them. I have most of them though, but not all of them. So let's move on into the live experiences. Iron Maiden is the foreign band that I have seen the most times. I have seen them 9 times. First time was in 1986, and the latest was 2013. The first time in '86, I actually didn't consider it to be such a wonderful experience, but that was because of my attitude. When I went to the concert, I was kind of mad at them for the album, so my attitude was like, okay, now you have to prove yourself to me. So I did leave the concert with a positive feeling that I had liked it, but it wasn't the best possible gig for me. But that was my own fault. I went there with the wrong attitude. But the next time on a Seventh Son tour, I did like it. I thought it was fabulous gig, and I think that is the biggest reason why I today rate the Seventh Son album so highly. These days I like every song on it except for the Can I Play With Madness, which is a shame because they play it quite often and all the fans go like, yeah, and I'm going, what a disappointment. The best gigs, I would say that I could name two of their best gigs in my opinion, and they were Matter of Life and Death gig in 2006. I hadn't even heard the album when I went to see them, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It was really good, and it really hit me in the core. I really thought it was great, absolutely great gig, and I like the album, although it still took me about 2 years after the concert before I finally bought that, but that's usual for me. The other greatest one was Somewhere Back in Time tour in 2008. I actually went there expecting it to be absolutely fabulous gig, and I expected Rime of the Ancient Mariner to be the best song of the gig. And it was great, but the highlight for me turned out to be the song Power Slave. So in a sense that made it even better to me. It was a brilliant gig. The only thing that I was disappointed with it was the length. All in all it was 1 hour and 50, but I say that it was hour and 40 because from the time they left the stage and when they returned, there was a 5-minute break there, and then first 5 minutes Bruce gave a speech there. So in my opinion, it only lasted like hour and 40, and it could have been well over 2 hours in my opinion, especially when during the gig Bruce said that we are going to be playing a long time, not tonight. Well, they didn't. Also, I could say that the Iron Maiden is only one of two, or depending on how you count, one of four bands that I have seen both here in Finland and in another country. When the tickets for the tour of 2011 Final Frontier came available about 8 or 9 months before the gig, I immediately bought the ticket, and after that it was just a matter of waiting for the gig. But before that gig happened, which was in July, I was on holiday in Berlin. That was in late May, early June of 2011. And as I was walking on the streets, I happened to notice the concert poster there, and I was just, okay, they are playing a gig here too. And at first I didn't think anything of it, but then I turned around and took another look at it, and I realized that it was on the same week as I was there. So I decided to find out if there were tickets available, and friendly staff at the hotel actually called up the ticket agency, and there were tickets. The only thing was that I had to go to the arena and pick up the ticket before noon of the day at the concert, but that was hardly any problem. So I managed to see them in Berlin also. The worst gig I would say that I have seen was in 2005 at the Early Days tour. I have no explanation as to why I wasn't in any way really taken by it, because obviously the first 4 albums, everything on those albums are fabulous stuff, and they played really well. So I really just don't know why I didn't really like it. I just didn't get into it, with the exceptions of Revelations and Die With Your Boots On. But other than that, I don't know. I just really didn't get into it. I really have no explanation as to why. And when the next time they come to Finland, I will go see them again. These days, I would say that more than expecting new music from them, I am hoping that they will keep on releasing these DVDs, and not because of the live concerts on them, but because of the documentaries on these. All of these live concerts that are on these, I have only watched them once each, with the exception of Live at the Rainbow on this first one, which is the only one that I have watched more than once. But these documentaries are really interesting, so I am really looking forward to the next chapter when they move on to the period which I'm not really that familiar with. Okay, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching. Bye.